Ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome back to our crime prevention webinar. I'm joined in studio here by Inspector Conor Madden and Sergeant Ronan Mahan from the Roads Policing Unit, who brought a nice array of toys with them here. Feels a little bit like the toy show, lads. It's been a long time since I drove a motorbike in the Guards, Conor. And I suppose just start by saying Roads Policing Unit. That's what you call yourselves now.
Yeah, Mick, if I just explain that, previously we were called road traffic, or we were called the Traffic Corps.
That was my day.
Yeah, and that went right back to 1972. So obviously things have modernised, and we were rebranded a number of years ago. And what they're now, our title now is Roads Policing. Now, with that also comes major event management and denying criminals the use of the road. And they are very important functions as well as roads policing.
Yeah, I think that's important. As I say, we're having our crime prevention webinar here today, yes. And a lot of people, when they see the, as you call it, the traffic corps or the traffic police out on the street, they think they're out to try and catch me for no tax. But it's more than that. Yeah. You're monitoring the roads for criminalities, because we know criminals use the road network, travel around the country, and burgle houses and commit other crimes. So it's interesting to know that that's what you're out there. And I suppose we're keeping people safe, and to reassure people that's what we're doing. Can I just ask, Conor, I suppose, you know, collision statistics over the last couple of years, from what I can see, have increased. Road fatalities, I believe, have increased. Serious traffic collisions, and in the past we used to call them accidents, but there's somebody culpable at the end of the day, so they're collisions. They have increased. Why is that?
Well, listen, it certainly has something to do with the volume of the traffic that's on the road. But when we talk about statistics, you can throw them out there, but we have to remember what's behind a statistic. It's not just a number. You have, every time there's a fatal collision on the road, you have a family, you have a community, you have extended family that are affected by a fatal collision. Like if we look at the figures for last year, there was 120 people killed last year, year to date. So there were, at the moment, the figures were down, 120 year to date this year. So we're down 17 on last year's figures, but we still have a long way to go in the year. And again, I have to remind you, and we all have to remind ourselves, that these are families that are affected, etc. 11 people, unfortunately, absolutely 11 people have been killed on Galway roads to date this year. And that's a figure that's always close to my heart when we're out working there, and that this is our responsibility to try and reduce the deaths on the road. That's
11 real people, 11 families, 11 and wider communities as we go into the Christmas period. And obviously our thoughts and prayers are with them all.
And just before, we also have 37 serious injury collisions on Galway roads to date, and like they can have horrific consequences for someone that's involved in a serious collision, and have life-threatening injuries and permanent injuries that they'll have to deal with at the end of their life. So that's another important function. We want to reduce serious injuries on the road. We want to reduce the deaths on the road.
Yeah, and we're going to come back maybe and talk a little bit about driver behaviour, but I want to get to the kit that's around us here. Ronan, thanks very much firstly for bringing everything in here today.
No problem, Michael.
I might start with something you have. It's called ANPR.
Yes.
Can you talk me through what that is and how it'll help, I suppose, communities feel safer from a travelling criminal point of view?
Okay, it's an automatic number plate recognition system. The roads policing vehicles are fitted with this equipment. If a vehicle is detected on the system, the system can tell us whether it's hasn't got tax, insurance, or NCT. Apart from that, then, in relation to criminality, if there was a warning up on a vehicle or the vehicle was stolen, it'll highlight it and it'll indicate for us to stop that vehicle and intercept it. So it's a useful bit of kit, but ANPR is not just on the vehicles. The mobility device that we have there, the mobile phones, can be activated as an ANPR system as well. So if you're conducting a checkpoint, it's not necessarily just for roads policing. It could be to detect whether there's a warning on our vehicle, or whether you're looking for a stolen vehicle.
And that's very interesting, and I'm sure comforting to the public out there that, you know, while we might see the guard doing the checkpoint and think it's, here he is again trying to catch us for no tax, or she, as the case may be, they are monitoring the traffic flow. They are looking at every car going through the checkpoint. the number plate of every car is fed through these cameras or these devices, checked in the background, and you will get a warning if a criminal a car with a warning on it, or a stolen car or something like that.
It's not necessarily just within the jurisdiction. It could be from outside the jurisdiction as well. You know, so we would intercept that vehicle and establish what the issue is.
Yeah. You bought some other things with you here. Maybe the speed gun first.
Well,
it's changed a lot from the ones I had back in the day.
Yeah, this is the TrueCam speed gun. It has a video capability, so that can detect a driver speeding at a distance of up to 1 kilometre. So as the vehicle's coming towards you, you can actually record the vehicle as it's coming towards you. So the driver mightn't actually have seen you, but you have the facility to show them that. Okay, that's quite an expensive bit of equipment. The smaller one here, True Speed device, nice and handy, useful for the motorcycle. If you're out at the roadside, literally you can detect a speeder for half a kilometre away. It's easy to put into the motorcycle and get back up and follow the offender. As I say, it's very handy. It's nice and light, and it's calibrated. You calibrate that at the start of each tour, as you would with this one.
So what I'm hearing here for people that are watching in and thinking, do you know what? When I see the guard, I'll slow down. If you're tracking them 1 kilometre away, you've caught them before they ever see you.
Yeah,
you know, and speeding, and then Conor, you mentioned the speeding, the importance of slowing down and saving lives. Drunk driving, drug driving, obviously they are huge factors as well in many of our serious and fatal collisions.
Yeah.
You have some of the, I suppose this is newer equipment, and I haven't operated myself. It was drunk driving when I was in roads policing, but this is for drug driving now.
That's drug driving. It's a bit like a coffee machine. It's nice and light. It's easy to use. You have a door at the front. It detects for cannabis, cocaine, opiates, benzodiazepines. So what you're looking for from the driver is a specimen of their oral fluid. Once that's been provided, it's put into the device, and it takes approximately 8 minutes for the sample to come back to tell you whether the person is positive for any of those drugs.
I'll come to you in a second, Conor, but I know what a conversation with you last week with Conor was that prescription drugs, you know, if I was on an antibiotic or on something, is there a possibility that what I take as a prescription drug would put me over the legal limit in one of these machines?
Generally, on the opiates or the benzodiazepines, those can be abused by people that are driving. Okay, they're not adhering to the directions that's on the medication or that they've been given by the hospital or the doctor. Okay, then again, they could be taking other drugs in conjunction with that. Okay, so if it's a case that a person fails for an opiate or a benzodiazepine, you'd be conducting an impairment test.
Okay,
and that will determine whether they're impaired and their driving is impaired to an extent that they can't be behind the wheel. If the person fails that test, or they fail for cannabis or cocaine on this system, on the DT5000, what will happen then is it'll allow a nurse or a designated nurse or a doctor to take a sample of blood from them.
Okay. So I suppose maybe just for people who may be on prescription drugs, I suppose the good advice would be check the packaging.
Yes.
You know, does the contents of this packaging, could it affect your driving or affect anything? Absolutely. Finally, maybe you have over here, I think it's the roadside for the breath test. We often hear about the MAT checkpoints or the MIT checkpoints.
Alcometer,
the alcometer. So that on the side of the road gives you an indication quite quickly if somebody's consumed alcohol.
Well, it does. Sometimes you can arrest somebody without carrying out that test if it's clear that they're intoxicated. However, this assists you to form your opinion. When you stop the driver, be it at a normal checkpoint, or they've committed a road traffic offence, or at a MIT checkpoint, mandatory intoxicant checkpoint, you can make a demand of them to provide a specimen of breath, or provide a sample of oral fluid. With this, on the first screen, it comes up driver or specified driver. Now, a normal driver, if they have their driver license with them and they've passed their test over 2 years and they're not disqualified from driving, you'd be selecting that, and their limit is 22 micrograms of alcohol.
Okay.
So where if they're a specified driver, which would be a learner permit holder, or for a person who's a novice driver and has only passed their test within the last 2 years, they'd be classified as a specified driver.
Well, yeah. That's your mobility device telling you you're not mobile at the moment.
Yeah.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
So, look, I suppose you do have a lot of equipment out there which helps you do your job and keeps our roads safe. And thanks for bringing that in. Conor, if I can go back to you. Operation Lifesaver, we hear about it every year. What is it, and who are the agencies that you work alongside?
Mick, just Lifesaver in itself, what we do is, and you've discussed it here, we concentrate on offences in relation to intoxicated driving, speeding, non-wearing of seatbelts and use of mobile phones. They would be what we call our Lifesaver offences, and basically we would target those on any given day. So that operation runs year in, year out, day in, day out. Now we run other operations throughout the year. At the moment, in the run-up to Christmas, and this started in October now, and I just clarified that. And it's called Operation Churn. And what we're targeting during that time is HGVs. We're working with our partners who I've mentioned there, and in relation to our partners who also police roads and who are very important in relation to the policing of roads and vehicles. We have the RSA, they work with us on a weekly basis. We carry out joint checkpoints with the Health and Safety Authority. They work with us in relation to things. Galway County Council and Galway City Council, they have a very important role to play in relation to the movement of traffic around town and controlling pedestrians, etc. So we work on the Joint Policing Committee, the subcommittee, with both those agencies, and we have meetings on a regular basis, and we discuss the issues that we face on the roads every day.
And I think, you know, the things you mentioned there, the drunk driving, drug driving, speeding, and so on, they're not just things you picked out of the sky. It has been scientifically proven that they are the driver behaviours or the types of things that are causing these serious injuries and causing people to die on the road. So when we're out doing speed checkpoints, it's not for any other reason other than trying to save lives.
Yeah, and that is so true. We know over the years that as a result of deaths on the road, that it may well have been an intoxicated driver. It could be someone. It could be someone that was exceeding the speed limit, and also non-wearing of seatbelts and the use of the mobile phones. It is a proven fact that they are contributory causes to deaths and serious injuries on our road.
Ronan, if I come back to you, what other kind of driver behaviours are you seeing out there that's jeopardising people's lives?
Well, dangerous drivers, you know, careless driving with undue care and attention. I suppose, last year when the roads, you would perceived that the roads were quieter, actually the speed increased because there was less. I suppose there was less people on the road blocking the roads, so we noticed that the speeds were bigger. But I suppose with vulnerable road users, you have a court like the likes of motorcyclists, cyclists, pedestrians, elderly people, and children that are using the roads, footpaths, and drivers have to be aware that they have, I suppose, there's an added danger there with vulnerable road users. Okay, so I just ask drivers to be cognizant if they see pedestrians or they see cyclists, to allow that extra, I suppose, extra second or extra, I suppose, safety aspect in relation to it.
I think speed limits are the limit. It's not a target. So if it's a 50k, doesn't mean you have to drive at 50k.
Absolutely.
I suppose expect the unexpected.
Drive to the conditions and what's before you on the road. You have to be able to stop your vehicle in distance so you can see to be clear.
I remember the old RSA ads where the football came out across the road and the child ran off it. So it's expecting those kind of things. Can I go back to I'm a cyclist myself. I like cycling. Legislation was brought in, or regulations brought in a couple of years ago about the distance for the overtake. Can you talk us through that?
Well, in a built-up area, in a 50 kilometre speed limit area, or in a 30 kilometre speed limit area where the housing estates, a number of them, I think it's 150, are designated only 30 kilometres per hour, and that's as a result of the Jake's law, where there was Jake Brennan died. He was killed outside his house in Kilkenny. So the council have introduced in Galway that 30 kilometre speed limit, but it's the overtaken distance in a 50 or under is a metre, okay, and then outside that it's 1.5 metres. So if it's a case that you're travelling along, let's say a rural road, it's a regional road, it's an 80k speed limit, you have to allow for a cyclist. They could come across a pothole, or they could come across a shore, and they will deviate on the road. Cyclists can travel two abreast, so
of course.
If you see a cyclist, slow down and don't overtake if it's not safe to do so. Like if there's oncoming vehicles or whatever, just wait, give them the second. Now, there is a responsibility on cyclists as well to be careful in the way they cycle on the road. Every cyclist should read the rules of the road in relation to cycling, but just to make themselves safer, it's not obligatory to wear a helmet, but I would recommend it, because if you fall off the bike, it's protecting your head.
Yeah, I think these dark evenings, as you say, while there's no legal requirement to wear a high-vis jacket, there is a legal requirement to have lights on your bicycle, front and rear, and wearing a helmet, will save you if you were to come off the bike.
Absolutely. Cycling's, it's great for you, health-wise. However, cyclists, they do have regulations that they have to adhere to. Can't go through red lights, have to have lighting on their bicycle, and they can't ride a bicycle without due care and attention as well. So just everybody in the road, just give that extra second or opportunity for something to go wrong. Just allow for that.
I think that what we're saying here for motorists is slow down.
Absolutely.
Cyclists in front of you, hold back, overtake only when it's safe to overtake. Don't risk it. You're to give that 1.5 or 1 metre overtaking distance, but bearing in mind, if they are cycling two abreast, which you're entitled to do so, you really want to be going on to the offside of the road.
Absolutely.
Only when it's safe to do so.
Exactly.
Straight stretch, governed by a broken white line.
Be careful that there's no turn off on the right hand side, where a car could emanate from, so you have to take all these things into consideration.
Motorcycles, just from memory, I think, a lot of accidents with motorcycles. Again, it's slow down, I'd imagine, is the message to them.
Speed is an issue. However, as a motorcyclist, I rode that here today. It's a fine machine. However, you've only a small little bit of rubber holding you onto the road. Okay, so your brakes, your tyres, very important. It's 1 millimetre tyre depth for the motorcycle, but you have to be. I suppose you have to be fully conscious of what's going on all the time, concentrating all the time when you're on a motorcycle. I
think, Niall, we have a couple of photographs. I think I took them off the Garda Twitter account. If you can just throw them up on tyres, you probably can't see them running, but they're there behind us. And really, it's just shown hugely worn tyres. And in particular, you might be able to see them on the screen there running. The one on the left, what stands out for me is they're car tyres. On the outside of the car, if you were standing, at the side of the car, it probably looks like you have a decent bit of tread. So the tyre is unbalanced in some regard, and it's wearing hugely on the inside, and that's a blowout waiting to happen.
Absolutely.
And if that happened on a motorway or in a 100k zone, the results
very dangerous.
The results are very dangerous.
If I stopped a car with the tyre that's on the left there, I'd be seizing that vehicle as a dangerous defective vehicle. That really is dangerous. The tyre in the middle and on the right hand side, you're open to a fine of €80 and 2 penalty points.
Penalty points
for each tyre.
Right.
So it's 1.6 mil tread depth, and it's very important. Like brakes and tyres and lights are very important on your vehicle. You have to check them. Brake lights, very important. There's nothing worse than at this time of the year, you're travelling on the road in dark evenings and you see one light wonder coming towards you. There again, you can issue tickets in relation to bulbs being gone. It's a €40 fine in relation to having a bulb blown.
Look, it's not something I'm sure you go out to do to upset somebody or ruin somebody's Christmas by giving a fine, but I think enforcement is seen as one of the ways to try and get people to listen and check their vehicles, as you said, making sure that the tyres, and even, you'd say, I put on new tyres a couple of weeks ago, they couldn't be worn. It's good habit to check them, because a nail or a screw or something could have gone into the tyre that will make the tyre defective and could blow out at speed.
Absolutely. Some tyres have run flat tyres, but not all vehicles have that. But I would always recommend at least once a week to check the tyres, the tyre pressure on your tyres. Don't be afraid to turn the wheel and to see whether it's wearing on the inside,
Good advice.
And definitely check your lights, brake lights and headlights.
Good advice. Conor, if I can go back to you, and I was listening to Minister Hildegarde Naughton on the radio last week, and she was talking about new legislation that's coming around e-scooters and quads and those types of vehicles. I'm not going to ask you to comment on what legislation may come down the road, but I suppose we're in that period where people are shopping for Christmas. I'm thinking about a scooter for the kid or a quad or something like that. Without going into the legal and ends of it, I suppose, are they dangerous, or what's your views?
Absolutely. I would just caution parents, if they are thinking of buying them for their children, no matter what age, that these machines some of them can travel up to 25 kilometers per hour. They can be powerful. So I would be advising parents to think twice before they look at e-scooters, before they look at quads. And as you said, there is legislation at the moment going before the government, and hopefully that will come in and give us more strict regulations that allow us to enforce it. The title they're going to be given these are powered personal transport. That's what they're going to be calling e-scooters. So hopefully the legislation will be appropriate, and we'll enforce it as required.
And I think by their mere name, powered personal transport, the idea behind them is they're brought in as a commuting vehicle for adults.
Yeah.
A lot of these scooters are designed for the adult to commute to and from work, and maybe not designed for kids. Obviously, there are kids ones that are for around the house, but not for the road. And it's, I suppose, understanding that, and if you are buying those types of vehicles for your kids, making sure that you know what you're buying, and going back to considering the safety, the helmets, the lights, the high vis, and all that goes with it.
Ultimately, it comes down to the parents in relation to what to buy for their children, and there is an onus on them to ensure that their children are safe.
There was a study done by two doctors in Dublin in relation to the increase in injuries suffered by children as a result of using these, not just children, but by the use of these electric scooters and electric devices. So if they have an accident or injure themselves, it's usually a more serious injury.
And I think they'll do something like 25 kilometres per hour in speed. You
wouldn't like to be a pedestrian hit by one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's coming up to 1 o'clock, gentlemen, so we're not going to delay. I'm going to finish maybe by asking each of you to give me your 3 top tips for road safety. Considering we're going into Christmas, Conor, what would you say to us?
Well, the first thing I would ask people to be conscious about is, if we have children or younger adults that are learning to drive, they're LPAT drivers, for want of a better word, to ensure that they adhere to the relevant regulations in relation to being accompanied by a qualified driver. That is very important, and I think that there is an onus on us to ensure that our children drive safely, etc. If I was to go for the second one, I would be looking at pedestrians, and I would be asking pedestrians to use whatever high-vis jackets they have or whatever to make sure they're being seen. And I would ask motorists in these dark times to ensure, to be aware that there are pedestrians out there that might not be on the footpath, so to be careful in relation to it. Finally, again, which is something I've been harping on for a long time in relation to speed, just reduce your speed. Make sure your speed is appropriate for the road conditions and for the location. If people do something with those 3 things I've mentioned, I'd be happy this year.
And you, Ronan?
Top of the list for me, intoxicated driving, drink driving, drug driving. They're an increasing problem, and it's not just an older person's problem. It has come back down to a younger age group again, a younger cohort. So if you're going to be out enjoying yourself, don't get behind the wheel, and consider the following morning as well, that if you've consumed an intoxicant, that you don't drive your car the following morning. That's the first one. Naturally, Operation Lifesaver offences, they're an ABC, speed, mobile phones, safety belts. That's my second one. And then the final one then is fatigue. A lot of people don't think about fatigue. Fatigue is a big problem. Make sure if you're traveling home for Christmas or you're doing a long journey, make sure you take your breaks. You know, get out of the vehicle, walk around the vehicle, 20 minutes, have a 20-minute nap, stop, have a coffee. That should get you home, okay? But you don't want bad news coming to the door at Christmas time. You know, so if you're feeling tired and you're not able to concentrate, pull over in a safe place, preferably a petrol station, and get yourself a cup of coffee and have a snooze.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming in, and thank you for all the work that you do out keeping our roads safe. You know, sometimes it may go unnoticed, but you know, from within An Garda Síochána and from an ex-Garda traffic corps man, I appreciate the hard work that you do out there. You know, day and night, 365 days a year.